So, Murphy, what about this episode or episodes, if you want to go down that route, intrigued you so much?
What do I like about Way of the Warrior? Well, it is the midpoint in the season, in the series. Sorry, uh, it's definitely where things start to go from being this is a little town and we have our little town problems to oh my god, the whole galaxy is now involved. So you get the Klingons coming in and this big task force, and they're going to Cardassia, and it's about the Dominion, and this is where the series kind of jumps into hyperdrive. Uh, After this moment, everybody's involved in some way or another. There's no going back. Um, I really like it. It brings Worf into the series, which is really interesting. And it, like I said before, when we did what was it, Blood Oath, this is a Klingon heavy series, and this is the next step. This is where it really starts. I think it's a great way to introduce the problems we're going to see in Cardassia later, talk about Klingon culture, and see how the Federation relates to all these different powers on a grand scale. So it's a really good start for that. What did you guys think?
Megan?
Oh, I thought this was an impeccable choice of episode, Murphy, because I love. There was lots of great character stuff in it. I called this my big headline, the episode of flirting. So hopefully we can get into that a little bit. And I love how it was not just it was a Klingon heavy episode, but it was also recasting the Klingons as antagonists again within the framework of the story. And I think that's so huge. Bringing back all-time favorite Worf could not be better. I liked everything about this. Great character moments, really important plot, and just it was a really fun episode.
I will have to say I completely misremembered this episode. I thought when Worf came on that this was almost played for comedic relief, because I remembered him coming onto DS9 with the theme Bad to the Bone. Well, I was obviously dead wrong about that. The introduction of Worf, I had wondered, was this Michael Dorn saying, hey guys, I need some work? Or was this DS9 saying, we need some help? Well, it turns out it was actually DS9, because their ratings had gone down a little bit the season before, and Paramount told them, do something. And this was their solution, which I thought was brilliant, because certainly for me, it re-energized me in a way that I was seeing an old friend who I really liked and I really respected. And that liking and respect only grew more with this episode because of his inner turmoil and his emotions and the struggle he was going through, even to come to DS9 on a temporary basis. I had also forgotten about the timeline where the Enterprise was destroyed literally and physically, and that he had lost that part of his life, and really he had lost his family. Not that they died, but that family that was created on the Enterprise was gone because the Enterprise was gone. And he had sort of stumbled around and, was thinking about resigning his commission from Starfleet because he was so lost. And he took this assignment out of either loyalty or perhaps more appropriately duty. But he goes there, and then the story really took off. But I was really intrigued by Worf in this episode. I was, in rewatching the episode, the first time, I was really upset that they changed the Klingons back to the bad guys, because I liked having them. I love having bikers as my friends. They're great to have around in certain situations. And but that was going to end, and Worf was going to be back out on the outs. But Murphy, you're absolutely right. This episode crystallized an entire new storyline that we got to explore on the Klingons, on their home world, obviously Worf's interaction and the family's interaction, but it led to me having a much deeper and richer understanding of the Klingons as we move forward,
Yeah.
certainly with Worf. But it really, you know, when you bring in a new star, sometimes it works and sometimes it didn't. Well, I thought it worked spectacularly in this show, and he didn't overtake or really over any of the other established stars. Obviously, he and Dax have a little thing going that appears very early. I was surprised how early she noticed him, whether it was a cute tush or something else. But that presaged a whole set of stories. And it really gave us a direction to go we didn't have available to us before. And I think the writers took full benefit of it as they moved the story forward.
Yeah. Yeah, the Worf is... I just... Something you were saying about Worf. I'm just saying, Worf in TNG was never fully used for his entire potential. I think the writers in TNG liked the idea initially of having a Klingon on because the Klingons had been the adversaries of TOS, and so now, let's have one of them on the bridge. Well, that's fine, but I don't think his storyline was fully ever fleshed out in TNG. He's always the, impulsive one, ready to shoot guns, and Picard has to be the diplomat and say, "Hold back, Mr. Worf." So he has backstory, but it's not until you get into DS9 that they really start to use him as a three-dimensional character. He's no longer this sort of hulking, monolithic caveman type, I mean, he goes through some singling in TNG, but it's really here that he starts to develop a personality and more of a life. And if you hear the expression, "O'Brien must suffer," my God, Worf must suffer. Worf is the ultimate, what can we do to poke Worf this week? With a lot of things, starting early in TNG and really continuing into DS9. But his arc on the second series is just amazing. All the way right through the end. It's really quite good. And I'm glad they used him well. He deserved it.
So what about the Klingons? Did you think this storyline or even pivot that the Klingon Galron made was consistent with the Klingon characters we had known up until this point?
I think it was, and I think it was really interesting because the Klingons have always been, deeply invested in their history and their mythos and their traditions and their ways, and it's really interesting. I kind of got the feeling that there was almost a fundamentalist or back to our roots movement that's happening back on the Klingon homeworld that is encouraging them to maybe technically abide by the letter of the alliance that they were in with the rest of the Federation, but definitely not the spirit of it. And I think, Worf undergoing almost the same thing internally as the whole Klingon Empire was going through externally, I thought was a really interesting mirroring. And I love getting so many of the details of their honor, of the politics that are going on, and just Martok being the ultimate troll of the galaxy in every way. It's like they were almost trying to see how far they could push the rest of the Federation and still technically be in the Alliance.
Yeah.
I really liked the series of conversations. I think it was Worf, but there was certainly other Klingons who basically said, if we're not combating, if we're not expanding, if we're not conquering, if we're not in battles, we're getting soft. Mm-hmm. And that they recognize that as a people. And whether you agree or disagree with that, I thought they honored that part of their background as the badasses of or what I call the bikers of the galaxy. I was interested that they were able to ascertain the weakness in Cardassia at this time, because up until, just a few episodes before, the Cardassian military, I thought, was viewed as quite strong, and certainly in their home worlds. So there was obviously quite a bit of turmoil as it played out in this episode as well. Any thoughts on what we saw about the Cardassians?
Yeah, there's a reason why Cardassia falls, and it is explicitly stated a few episodes before. And the reason is that the Romulans and the Cardassians went to the Gamma Quadrant to try to destroy the planet of the Founders. Now, doing that destroyed... This wasn't the Cardassian military, this was the Obsidian Order. And the Obsidian Order had built these ships, and they'd gone in. And the Obsidian Order is... I mean, the military is the strength, but the Obsidian Order, what was the expression? The Obsidian Order, no Cardassian is allowed to have breakfast without the Obsidian Order knowing exactly what they had for breakfast every day of their life. With the Obsidian Order gone, the dissident movement on Cardassia flourishes. And this is aided almost certainly by the Dominion. So the Dominion is playing both sides at this point. They're stirring up stuff on Kronos, and they're stirring up stuff on Cardassia. This is what they do. They manufacture chaos to destroy chaos. They want to bring order. You have to bring immense chaos to fix that order. And as for the Klingons, the fact that, and we've discussed this in other episodes, the Klingon government is not a cohesive government. It's made up of different houses, and they all have their own agenda. Now, to be able to bring them all together in a task force that huge, I mean, that is a massive task force. Even during the Klingon Civil War between Duras and Gowron, we didn't see anything that big. This must have taken a monumental undertaking on behalf of whoever brought it up, which is the Founders. And it's interesting that the task force shows up at DS9, decloaks, announces their intentions, and then goes to Cardassia. But they want to protect from the Dominion. Why don't they occupy Bajor? If they're going back to the old ways, as Worf said, why don't they go right to the source? They know their counterparts on Cardassia are doing the same. So Cardassia is the weaker target, weaker than Bajor because of the Dominion interfering. It's really interesting to see.
I think in addition to that, Murphy, because it's attacking Cardassia, I mean, they're also not very popular in the Federation. Attacking Bajor and its access to the wormhole would bring the entire weight of the Federation down upon them, and that's probably not the size of battle that they're currently looking for.
That's a good point.
People are going to object if they invade Cardassia, but most people are going to be like, don't dish it out if you can't take it. So I think strategically that was the much easier victory.
Right.
That Cardassia is also on the edge of its own stuff. I mean, Cardassia is at the end of its empire. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Keep going.
No, I think that the Klingons correctly perceive the Federation is more invested in Bajor and would more quickly come to the rescue, or at least try to protect Bajor more. There's no love lost between the Federation and Cardassia, no matter what they say.
Yeah.
So I think we all agree this episode works. I was really struck by, after the episode we did on Blood Oath, where you saw individually what Klingon honor can mean, how it was so manipulated in this episode to be, well, it's whatever I say it is, and whatever the leader says it is. And that Worf is basically written back out of his Klingon life, or his Klingon roots, to the extent he has any, because he refuses to follow what he believes is a, if not illegal or illogical, an incorrect order. Really, any thoughts on where the Klingons did they lose something by doing what they did, or did they have to go to war against somebody?
I think that's a good question, and I think it's a little early to say, because we know a lot more of the story than they do at the moment. So I think they probably feel very much like they're preserving an old way of life. But Klingon history probably not being that dissimilar from Earth history, trying to preserve what has evolved doesn't historically go well for the people who are trying to turn back time. So I think they're not as likely to get what they want. Unless, maybe the goal is to completely overthrow the entire galaxy. I wouldn't put it past them. And to, be the supreme rulers of absolutely everything. But I think they've got a pretty tough tough row ahead of them if that's the goal.
Do you feel like the Klingons miscalculated at all?
I think that there's been a kind of lack of self-confidence in Klingon culture since the Khitomer Accords. I think once the Khitomer Accords were signed, the Klingons kind of relegated to sort of grumbling around the galaxy and doing their own thing and being space pirates. But something essential to that character of being a superpower was kind of lost. If you look at early episodes of TNG, they even try to make references that the Klingons joined the Federation at some point. Wesley asks a question, and you'll see a Klingon flag and a Federation flag show up on the view screen. It's kind of hinted at that the Klingons are on the way to joining the Federation and becoming part of this. But really, it's just the Empire going through this sort of like journey of self-discovery, being like, if I'm not a warrior and I'm forced to participate in this democratic process across the galaxy without fighting, what do I do? And they react to it pretty badly. It takes a lot out of them. And I think that's one of the reasons why this task force works so well. It's because someone is finally saying, look, there's our neighbor over there. We don't have beef with them, but for reasons XYZ, let's go and trounce them. And I think that really fires something up to the point that they're, willing to go back to war with the Federation and break the Khitomer Accords over this, rescuing of this staff council and attack on the station, which is just mind-boggling. But there's a kind of fever that's taken hold. Yeah.
I'd love to hear your opinions on what you think it meant for Sisko and for Kira to effectively declare war on the Klingons by rescuing Cardassian officials. Like, how did that hit you while it was happening?
I love the irony of it.
Yeah.
And Gul Dukat asking for help, or at least accepting it. Kira, we have all remarked about her growth, and I thought this was another growth episode for her because she was able to see a much bigger picture. And I think she realizes that if they take Cardassia, her very naked little planet may well be next. So I think she was able to see that, and she was able to put aside her DNA hatred of all things Cardassia and Cardassians to get the job done.
Yeah.
So I will have to say I was very impacted emotionally by this episode, largely because of what Worf went through, but also to see something that I really like the Alliance. I really like the Khitomer Accords.
Yeah.
I like that whole story arc, and I could see obviously that was going to go away. Now the three of us know we've got a long way to go, and I was comforted somewhat by the fact that I know we have some great Klingon story arcs. We have some great Klingon backstories. We learn as much or more about the Klingons over the next several seasons as we have learned through the original series and TNG. But I just thought this was an incredibly powerful episode. And when, in my mind, I almost bookended it with Blood Oath because of what Worf went through. What were some of y'all's final thoughts?
Well, go ahead, Cuz.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to chat just for a minute about some of the relationships that we saw at play in this episode. Because we had some great moments towards the beginning with Sisko and Cassidy. And they're kind of having this currently like passing in the night issue with their relationship. But they're just so flirty. And I just made particular note of how Sisko can go from battle voice to bedroom voice, like 0 to 60. And it's amazing. There was some great, the meeting of Worf and Jadzia. Now, Worf and Jadzia, they're one of my favorite Trek couples. And I don't know, did you, I just thought the moment where they first met and she's wearing that ridiculous medieval outfit where she had been hanging out with Kira playing King Arthur in the holodeck. Superb. But this electric look that passes between them. And did you watch a stream of the show that translated what she said in response to Worf saying Curzon is an honored name among my people?
I know exactly what she said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm better looking, just power move from the beginning.
Yeah.
I love the setup of their relationship.
Yeah, what did she say?
I
Like,
thought
I'm a
there was
lot
some-
better. I'm a lot better looking
I'm a
than
lot
he
better
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, something. Yeah, that's great.
Just amazing. And I thought there was even like some great. This was one of the first episodes we've talked about this season with Garrick. So I just delighted in seeing him again and him flirting with Julian Bashir. And before anyone says it's not canon, I know it's not, but the world of fan fiction agrees with me that they should be a relationship. I looked it up, and there are 5,567 fan fictions featuring Julian and Garrick. 5,164 of them sexy. So it is out there in the world.
Yeah.
That should have been done. So yeah, I loved everything that happened relationship wise in this episode.
Yeah. There's
Murphy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Final thoughts.
Oh my God, so many. Well, I was thinking, lost my train of thought here. I was looking at my notes. One of the things that I wonder about this episode, and we've seen a lot of season 3, which dealt with the Maquis, season 2, season 3. One of the things I keep wondering when they go off to, Cardassia to rescue Dukat and the Tapa Council, why does the Federation keep appeasing Cardassian interests over and over and over? They let the Cardassians walk all over them with the treaty. They turn their back on their own people in the Badlands and in the occupied territories in the DMZ. They turn the Maquis into terrorists rather than holding the Cardassians diplomatically responsible. They do this again and again and again. And it's always been very confusing. I've always wondered that. To the point of harassing the Klingons, who are their allies, to help the Cardassians. It's mind-boggling. But I suppose you have to go somewhere, and maybe the Federation hopes that civilian government on Cardassia Prime is going to lead to democracy. Who knows? There's a lot of questions I have about this.
Federation first.
Yeah, well, that's a very possible thing. It wouldn't be the first time. The Federation seems pretty damn vulnerable to being, drummed into weird conspiracy theories. A little of those bugs that take over the Federation Council in the first season of TNG. Yeah, there's a lot of strangeness. But stuff gets. I like it because we're gonna get more Klingon episodes. We're gonna get into more stuff. And the sort of Worf saga is gonna unfold really nicely. Although with quite a few bumps in the road that don't make sense in various episodes. I was reading something recently about the whole Kern thing where he has his brother basically lobotomized for something that gets resolved in the next 2 weeks. That's kind of terrible, but yeah. Yeah, that's it's a good place to jump into the second half of the story.
All right. Well, guys, thanks again for suggesting it. I really appreciated rewatching this. I completely misremembered it. And it was a great episode. So can't wait to see what we come up with next.
Till next time.